What is the correct level of AQI to not be doing leaf blowers in the city of Sacramento?
100. That was right. Whoever said it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what the city is mentioning.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that's the above 100, between 100 and 150 is when the air quality is bad for sensitive groups only. So it's okay if you're healthy, but if you have asthma or heart disease or things like that, it's considered to be bad. So that's probably why they chose 100.
Okay. What are other metrics we might use for if we do or don't want leaf blowers?
Time would be the big one.
That's
like
a good
time of
one.
Day, right? Like
Friday at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
I have a flurry of leaf blowers. Like it never fails.
Yeah.
I don't think the city's going to be looking into that though.
I mean, but noise pollution is a big deal. Like it really is.
I 100% agree. As somebody who creates a lot of noise pollution, it irritates the shit out of me when other people do it, when I'm trying to do
People
it.
join in.
I'm just trying to pollute with some noise.
I don't know if you all saw, but like Katie Valenzuela had a whole post about like the garbage trucks coming at 4 a.m. And then they talked,
right.
and lots of people were like weighing in on just like how disruptive it is to your sleep and how loud they can be, especially if you're close to the street when they're picking up and dropping the cans. It really is a problem. Like they can get quite high in terms of decibels. So noise pollution is real, and it definitely,
Well, and not to mention, I mean, the reason why they're talking about like city council is going to take that vote on banning leaf blowers on days where the AQI is over 100 is because it just like blows. I mean, for one, it's a pollutant. Like gas powered leaf blowers are like put out a ton of exhaust. And for two, they just blow all of these allergens and fucking pollens and shit all up into the air in these big clouds. Like, I don't know. I hope they pass this thing. In fact, I would like to see them go even a step further. You guys should know that I am a full-on leaf blower abolitionist, and I will not be satisfied and I will not stop until all leaf blowers have been completely abolished from Sacramento.
I slipped $5 to Councilmember Ashby, so I think we have her vote.
Cool.
I just don't understand leaf blowers. Like I fell prey to purchasing an electric one, which is clearly not as loud as the gas powered ones. And I thought it was going to do a thing that it doesn't do because I was really confused. I was like, so like, is there an ordinal way to blow the leaves? Or are you just like, this goes back to my core philosophical belief of like, you should not do things that if everybody did them, they'd be bad for people. And so I just don't understand where we're blowing the leaves to, because at least maybe I'm not skilled enough, but I can't get them to go in one particular place so I can add them to the green. It's just like, I can just blow away from things. And so it doesn't seem particularly useful, and it feels like a vacuum feature would be a lot more useful.
Yes, where is the leaf sucking technology? Can we get the scientists to work on that, please? It doesn't seem like it should be that difficult. Or full on like
sucking.
A leaf sucking. Or a leaf disintegrator, maybe?
Suck no blow. That's what we need. We need the suck no blow.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, suck. I think leaf sucker should be spelled with 2 C's as well, like instead of a CK.
Or if we have an open carry law that we each have a leaf blower, so we can just blow back at whoever.
No. That ramps us into this escalation process.
Eye for an eye. I get it.
Yeah. I mean, a leaf blower for a leaf blower makes the whole world deaf.
Yeah. I just want to grab my leaves and then open up the case where the leaves have been sucked into, and then empty it into a place where I could either like compost it or, put it in my garden and, or put it in the green waste. Like the leaf blower doesn't make sense. It's like the fly swatter. I don't understand. And I don't believe in you.
Well, that's like apples and pineapples, but okay.
Let's get the scientists on the phone and get the silent suck technology going.
I love that.
The old silent suck technology. Let's get city council on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they're ready.
Other cities.
You want to know, like, why did this idea come up?
Well, I think it's because they were blowing leaves when it was just like 400
Above
AQI here,
AQI.
like when the fires were going. And it was absolutely fucking
horrible.
ridiculous, and everybody was pissed about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I just like sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad idea to do, but like there's so many things we're calling you to do, and then you're like, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna deal with the leaf blower issue that nobody's
Blow some
complaining
leaves
about.
around.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, yes, this is obviously an issue, and it causes distress for people who have respiratory conditions. But I'm like, is anybody actually complaining about this? Because we also have had like terrible air quality days because of wildfires and other things going on. And I'm just wondering if this is like,
Honestly,
I mean-
I think it's the rich people complaining about it, and that's why it's being responded to.
aren't they the ones who are getting the leaf blowing happening? Like,
yes, for one, yes. For two, I don't think it's rich people. I think it's the fact that this city council and this mayor, when they're like, all right, what do we want to tackle? And it's like massive, I don't know, like fucking defunding the cops, other stuff that's like really hard and terrible. Leaf blowers. That these guys are like, oh, let's do the leaf blower one. That's the one we should take
But
care
they can't
of.
even do it the way that other cities pull it off by just getting rid of leaf blowers. They're like, well, if the air quality index is above 100, then we'll think about it.
I didn't even realize that Berkeley has abolished leaf blowers completely. I love
rich people. Like I'm telling you, it's the rich people.
I love that.
Okay, so this reminds me a lot of something that Tarina and I laugh at a lot, which is
it's the rich libs.
When when Kevin Johnson was mayor, he had a state of the city where he talked about the third grade reading level and how so many students weren't doing well. And he was like, and so because of that, I'd like to announce our new partnership with VSP to help these students get glasses. And I was like, is that why the kids can't read? Because they can't see the words on the page? Because I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening. And I just kind of feel like this is the same thing. And so Tarina and I, we will walk around the house. There's so many inside jokes in this house. We'll walk around and we will always talk about how, you know what you need? You need some glasses.
Holy shit.
Such a ridiculous answer to that question. Like, so none of the kids can see the board? Is that the problem? And I feel like that's what's happening here. It's like, you're doing a thing that's fine, but is the rationale for, is this the thing that we need right now? Is this the most pressing? Like, it just...
I think the answer to all of those questions is yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sally.
Leaf blower abolition is very important to me, and it holds a high priority. And I'm glad, I for one am glad to see our city leadership finally taking this issue seriously.
Credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm into it.
City council is finally on the right track. So
Thank you, Sacramento City
looking
Council.
forward to 2021 here. All right.
It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, let's do it.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
Did you hear that?
All
We
four
have-
of us.
We have
Band's back
Shannon
together.
here today.
Shannon is back. Shannon, how are you feeling?
Yes.
I feel like I'm missing an organ.
Which one?
The gallbladder.
Ah, yes, right.
Mm.
Are we enjoying missing that organ?
Yeah, the eviction went
I wouldn't
well.
say I miss it.
It went well. Everything's fine. I'm good. I mean, I'm like a week and a few days out from the surgery that I
You
learned.
look great.
I learned that I hate having surgery. Like full panic attack on the table situation.
Oh my God.
That's so weird because most people I talk to love to have surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most people are just like lining up for it, you know? They're
Yeah,
just
they
like,
can't get enough of it.
Surgery and
enough.
funerals are like, that's my week. If like if I can go
Yeah.
to like a funeral in the morning and have surgery in the evening, I'm like
Right.
set.
And then
Like,
wake up the
sign
next
me up,
day and
sign me
go get my
Do it-
teeth cleaned at the
do
dentist.
it all over again. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Actually,
not
I
my
really
jam.
like getting my teeth cleaned.
Oh,
I
shut
actually
up.
really like
Flo, God damn it.
funerals.
I hate
This
that.
is why Flo has perfect teeth, though.
Yeah, I know. I have my
Love
teeth
it.
are all fucked up.
I
No, they're
refuse to go to
not.
the dentist.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm healing, and it's weird to be like recovering from a surgery situation. It because I was like week 1, I was like, I'm just gonna go back to work for a little bit. Like I got some stuff to do, and like 2 hours, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just go home because I feel like
Yeah.
total garbage. Like,
Yeah.
Your body
so
was like, nah, you tried it.
my
but
body
no.
was like, no. Go home, go to bed. So yeah, it's good to be back. And I think that well, I said this previously, but no foreseeable breaks, which is nice.
All right.
My health is mostly in check. So
Exciting.
Wonderful. That must
I
be
love
extremely
it.
relieving.
Yeah.
It is extremely relieving. It's like the same sort of relief. It's like cautionary relief, I guess is what I would say. I was gonna relate it to something that I don't want to get into, so never mind.
I think I have an idea, but I won't push you on this.
Uh-huh.
My question is, I had a great question and now it's gone.
It's okay.
Shit, hate when that happens.
Oh my
Well,
God.
before we get started with the show, I wanted to take a moment to gloat. It looks like Joe Biden is likely to finish with 306 electoral votes.
That's all you.
That makes
And
you-
that
yeah.
would be that is a victory for me. And
Your
I
guess
take
was
it very
again
seriously.
320?
Yes, and it was we were within 20 was
Yep.
were the parameters. So
Yep.
so I got it.
Flo,
win
you were
voices.
335.
Yes.
I was 350. So my guess was the map that it's ending on, plus North Carolina and stupidly Florida. And Skylar beat us all.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm the Nate Silver of this podcast, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you are. Yeah,
That's
you are.
great.
Yeah, because I was still like, I still think Biden's probably gonna lose by a narrow margin. So I was like, well, either way, I get to be pleasantly surprised. So I'm glad I was wrong. I really am. I will forever be like, I am probably wrong about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my opinion was Biden had a much, much worse night than like the experts, quote unquote, were expecting, but he still came out with a fine lead, like it's nothing to write home about. But what makes it really funny to me is it's the exact same number of electoral votes that Trump won with in 2016. And Trump was like, it's a landslide, a historic landslide. And now he can never say that again.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Well, yeah,
he
no, he
will.
will because
He will,
definitely
because
will.
numbers don't
Yeah.
have to meet the
No.
same when
Yeah.
he uses them. So that's fine. Yeah.
But it is a little sweetened by that, even though I'm no fan. of
Honestly, like I think this is the only upside of COVID because I think without COVID, I just don't know if we get this outcome.
Yeah, I think that is a completely
I
fair
think you're right.
assessment.
Yeah.
I do. I have many thoughts on this in differing directions because like COVID brought out both sides in weird numbers in weird ways. But just the existence of COVID, I think definitely it pulled your sort of middling conservative leaning dad with blackish hair that looks like a funhouse Paul Ryan in Wisconsin. It pulled them to the Democrats or at least to the Libertarians. So,
Yeah.
hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
Funhouse Paul Ryans. You get what I mean.
I think there were a lot of people who showed up to vote this time that maybe still wouldn't have had they not. Like, I think this put on the stage just like how important national leadership is in a way that I don't even know if some people who already were going to vote had really appreciated, right? Like, because there's a way that you start to norm into the chaos of usual, but we haven't normed into COVID yet. And so it still feels a bit chaotic. Whereas some of the other things I think that Trump did don't feel quite as new because he'd been doing them for almost 4 years, right? So it's just kind of like, it was like people started to tune out, but I think this caused people to tune back in because of how much their lives have been disrupted and how, and like I said, I don't think we've normed into it yet. We're still like missing things, right? It hasn't even been a year. So there's some people who still haven't had to contend with like, how do I celebrate my birthday in a pandemic? You know, like, it's like, this is still new for us, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that worked. I think that worked in our favor in some respects in terms of being able to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Even if this isn't our ideal candidate.
Oh my God, we've got more COVID talk to go, but like just to follow through on this, because maybe we do all have a little thought or here or there to say about the Biden Trump thing. I feel like the smog hasn't completely lifted yet, but like I'm also watching people just generally ignore Trump now because he's lost. And it is a weird dynamic where my mom kept asking me if I'm sleeping day in and day out the last week. And then Sunday night to this morning, like I fucking slept in a way that I haven't slept in fucking who knows how long. Because it's like, I'm registering that like this whole weird thing is at least over this chapter of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess we can move on.
Yeah. Dave, what are we discussing today on Voices River City, the podcast where they only have perfect takes?
Skylar, I'm glad you asked.
Always with the perfect question.
This feels like the sign off.
Right, it does.
So no, today, boys and girls, we're going to talk about a county CEO by the name of Navdeep Gill, who once upon a time took $181 million of CARES Act money. CARES Act money being... Do you mind? Simi is furious with Nav Gill.
He heard Navdeep Gill and he was like, "That's it."
He was like, I no more of this dude.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay. Nav Gill took $181 million of CARES Act federal funding earmarked to go toward fighting coronavirus in counties throughout the country, really. And what our county CEO decided to do with that $181 million was first and foremost give $104 million of it directly to the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Now, those of you who remember over the summer, there was a big August 11th Board of Supervisors meeting where they had to answer for it, and then people called in to basically tell them how they were liars. You might remember the first commenter was our friend Flojan Kofer. I heard your comment as I was like prepping for the episode tonight, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And so I ended up getting my hands on acquiring a few emails involving Nav Gill's group, his side of the county. And it basically, there was a person at the county saying, hey, listen, the sheriff's department is just like offhand asking for $75 million. I need to know what this is coming from, why they feel like they need this money. What is this like? How is this COVID related effectively? And one of Navgill's guys, a guy named Britt Ferguson, responded, oh yeah, he responded 2.5 weeks later saying like, oh, I had the sheriff's department go through their files once more to sort of clean them up. But basically, if they're putting more than 30% of their time toward COVID related efforts, then we can just reimburse them fully, whole hog, for the work they're doing. And so out of nowhere, the county just like that just okayed it. Flo, can you talk a little more background on what else happened there? Because this is a very galling thing. And I also got my hands on, before August 11th, which requests for COVID money they accepted and denied. And it's indirect. It basically shows that what they said that day at that Board of Soups meeting was a lie. But Flo, maybe you can tell the story better than I can.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're doing a great job, Dave. I mean, really what happened was we got these funds and then the sheriff asked for 75 million and essentially got, basically $30 million more than that, while public health and other folks who needed this to be able to combat the virus got the runaround, or things were just flat out denied. And then Nav said on the record that everyone who asked for money was given what they asked for. And so Dr. Kassirier in that moment had to step forward and say, that's actually not true. And we were directed. Did
you say who Dr. Kassirier is?
Yes, I apologize. Dr. Kassirier is the county health officer, the one who has been issuing the stay-at-home orders and, really making sure that we have measures in place to be able to keep us safe. And so would be responsible for things like contact tracing and making sure, we have all of the protections in place for testing, and, making sure we have the correct data to be able to monitor exactly how many cases we have, and where hotspots are and all of the mitigation efforts. And Dr. Kassirier had to stand up and say, actually, that's not true. We asked for $90 million. We were told that we could only ask for money for this year, so we revised it to $45 million. And then we were told that we should only ask for $2 million, which was absolutely ridiculous given the fact that they're public health and they should have had first cut at
absolutely
money.
This is CARES Act money directed towards public health, directed towards the pandemic. And it tells you exactly how Nav Gill views the pandemic.
Right.
And even the response times, right? Or like the sheriff asks for $75 million and gets a response almost immediately. And public health gets to run around for multiple months. Meanwhile, requests were denied for things like money to be able to acquire, hotels to house the people who were vulnerable and were experiencing homelessness, and, food for quarantine families, and like all of these things that this money should have been spent on, because that's the whole purpose of the money. And instead we got this like incredible upcharge for all of the sheriff's officers to just be like, yeah, if at least a third of the time, sure, without even a description of like, what is the sheriff doing for a third of their time?
Right.
Well, and that's not, I mean, like the timing of this is also outrageous. Like at the time when this is happening, there are protests in the streets. As this is happening, the police are and the sheriff are responding to police brutality protests by brutalizing all the protesters. So the cops and the sheriff are like right in the middle of this like gigantic like expo of terrible fucking behavior. And this is the time when Nav Gill thinks that it's like a really good idea to take all of the coronavirus relief money and just give it to Sheriff Jones.
Absolutely. And I want to get to that. And after I want to list off one by one all the denials that they claimed that they approved before August 11th. And then I want to circle back to this violent police side of it. So August 11th, Nav Gill, Britt Ferguson, who wrote the email saying 30% of their time, whatever, we'll just let them do it. And then Bruce, who's the guy who's the head of the committee who approves it. Bruce said, to date, that has been the case, that we have approved everything. This was August 11th. That's a lie. Before
bullshit
August
slide.
11th, there were 60 requests by DHS, the county DHS, the Health Services Department. 31 were approved. 8 were denied outright. Among the 8 denied outright, let me read you some of them. $15 million for hotel acquisition to house the deeply vulnerable homeless population. 15 million for something that our governor said was a priority. He said,
Correct.
do this with this money now.
Correct.
They said, fuck you.
Correct.
These people still have their jobs.
Correct.
Denied July 7th, 126,000. That's pennies compared to the 75 million that the sheriff's department
That's the
got.
most galling part, is that some of these asks are for like these infinitesimal amounts when you look at how much they just like dumped on the sheriff's department.
It's incredible. Yeah. So $126,000 for A, food for quarantined families, B, telecommunications equipment, C, contract nurses, D, staff overtime costs.
For
Denied
like
the overtime costs.
The overtime
Overtime-
costs, they were claiming that overtime costs, like, well, we'll have FEMA cover that. But it's like, what about this other shit?
Yeah,
I want to put that in perspective, because what people fail to realize is we've made this argument for overtime costs for law enforcement for forever, right? That we need overtime because they're working hard and because this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And we weren't able to hire people back, so we have to do overtime because we don't have enough people. Public health has never recovered from the Great Recession. I'm going to say that again. Public health has never recovered from the Great Recession. So if you look at budgets today compared to what they were in 2007 and 2008, the law enforcement budgets have largely recovered. Many of the other department budgets have largely recovered. But nationwide, public health has not recovered since the 2008 recession. So you are asking public health, who's also responsible for all of the other things that keep you safe, that you ignore on a regular basis because you just assume that that's the way the world works, is operating at a deficit for the last 12 years, and then has had a global pandemic placed in its lap, and you can't give them $126,000 to cover overtime. Fuck you, and fuck your birthday.
Galling.
That's
It's
how I
totally
feel.
galling. I mean, basically, I want to finish the read, but I'll go really fast on it. But basically, I'm pretty sure that the sheriff's department is gobbling up all of the funds, and that the county's probably been operating in the red. And as soon as this CARES money came in, Gill was just like, oh yeah, then we can like fill in the hole that the sheriff's department has eaten up. And that's what they tried to do. And then when people saw what they were doing, they were like, no, fuck you. We have a fucking pandemic happening.
Right.
July 7th, $262,165, PPE and office safety measures, telework capabilities, overtime costs. Denied July 8th, $421,900, equipment for all subacute care teams, basically everyone facing public people who might have COVID, staff overtime, telework costs. Like, there's a lot more to go through, but just these few things, it shows you just the gall that Gill has and the gall that his entire team has. And back to Skylar's point, like, yeah, this was a time when not just people were being violently beaten in the streets by, the sheriff's department, but also like COVID was on the rise at that time too. And they just thought this could go through like it was nothing.
Precisely. Yep.
Yeah, it's ridiculous too. It sucks also to like compare like the way that some other cities use some of theirs. Like LA paid, according to this article or this piece in the B, LA paid for it like its $103 million renter relief program primarily with this money. And then the next line in this piece is, when asked if Sacramento County considered Similar program, Sacramento County Fiscal Officer Britt Ferguson said, quote, "Not so much." Unquote.
Britt and Nav are just vile people. Vile people. Britt is
What a
no
piece
longer
of
with the
shit.
county.
Skylar, if you enable screen sharing, I can put it up because this is for the YouTube watchers. This is just like so egregious, and we can include it in the show notes. But we actually have a slide that just illustrates. We have two slides actually that illustrate what both of what you're talking about. One is a comparison of how LA spent their CARES dollars versus us, and the other one is just showing how egregious this timeline is while the COVID numbers are going up. So
should be good to go.
Okay. So let's see. This is the slide where it's like, okay, so how did Sacramento spend its money? And if you look at like Sacramento spent 85% of our money on law enforcement and 13% on other county departments, mostly staff salaries and time off. Whereas LA County spent 35% on public health and 18% on housing vulnerable people and 17% on financial and food and childcare support and 13% on support for small businesses and 13% on county staff reporting COVID-related duties.
Fucking
and 4% on
incredible.
contingency planning. And this is how we spent our
And ours is 85% law enforcement.
Which is 0% for LA County.
Right. And then 13% other county departments, mostly staff salaries and time off.
Yep.
That's where
Disgusting.
all of our
Disgusting.
fucking money went.
And so I'll go back to the slide that this is the one that really pisses me off all the time when I have to look at it, because it's like, here we are, watching these COVID cases go up and watching people ask, like, and Kula Koenig really deserves a major shout out for assembling the Cares for the People Coalition, because she was like, where is this money going? Where is the money going? Where is the money going? And all of this is happening, and Dave is calling out the dates of July 11th. Can we make sure that these funds don't go to law enforcement? Can we figure out where they're going? Can we, like, all these
right as
inquiries
it's just
going,
spiking.
It's just spiking.
They're saying no, right at the beginning of the spike.
Yep.
Oh my God. Nav should be in prison.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of accountability for this, because this isn't just like bad budgeting or like bad planning.
Right.
This is fucking criminal. Like
this is criminal.
This is unforgivable. Yeah.
I mean, to think that we have people in, like those frontline, and whatever, anyone working on COVID stuff, COVID related issues, just working day and night as numbers are spiking, as people are getting sicker and sicker, as people are dying, and you have, the top public health officials saying what we need is money, and we know that this community was granted $181 million for this purpose, and for one person to say, like, to just continue to say no while people are dying, like that, it is criminal, and it's not equitable. It's completely unjust. Why does he still have a fucking job?
It's also like, to me, like we treat or not us, I guess we're kind of on the other side of this thing, but lots of people treat the idea of quote unquote defunding the police as if it's like this crazy radical thing or whatever. But it's like, no, I mean, look at how we do it right now. Like, you think that this is how we ought to be doing this,
Right.
Somebody who quoted my thread today, I think, put it best. If we don't defund them, they will defund us.
Yes.
Yep.
And this is what happened. They defunded us when we needed this money the most.
Yep.
And it is killing people in
Literally,
Sacramento
people died.
County.
Yep.
Right.
It's absolutely. And like, by the way, this is a sheriff's department that does not wear PPE ever, not on their regular day-to-day operations. They never wear them within the jails, which is why people who have gone into the jails to give services decided to stop, because then they were at risk. This is the sheriff's department that does not respect this illness.
Well, as soon as the mask thing came out, and didn't Jones had something to say about like, well, I'm not going to enforce. What was it? Mask wearing, or was it like sheltering in place orders, or like it was something along one of those two. He just came flat out and was like, well, I don't think we're going to enforce that. So
I think it tells you who they are.
But and even Nav Gill, who just recently, like, this whole call for his resignation started because he was holding meetings without wearing a mask, and then somebody contracted the virus, and
making fun of people who were wearing masks and like being disparaging in that kind of a way as well.
Oh, was that a thing? I didn't see that.
And
I think there's like reports that he would like disparage people who were wearing masks and be critical of folks like openly.
Like, no wonder he's buds with the sheriff and gave him hella money.
Well, I mean, this is it's disgusting. People are dying in our county, and the fact that he still has a job, I think it tells you exactly how the Darth Susans of our board of supervisors view the illness as well. They don't take it seriously either. And it's disgusting.
View the illness and their constituents, right? Like the people who live in their districts, they don't give a fuck.
Well, if they cared about the illness, I would like to think that maybe they would think differently about it. But I think the fact that they don't think it's a problem, they're just like, whatever. Let's just let this thing ride.
So where we stand right now, and maybe I have been unplugged a little bit. So it's that there was the call by Supervisor Serna and Supervisor Kennedy, and then Greg Fishman, who is running for the Board of Supervisors,
who is leading now in his race, so it's possible he might win.
Yeah.
So these three folks have said that Nav Gill should resign. They've called for his resignation. Publicly called for his resignation.
Yes. So Fishman, if he happens to replace Darth Susan #1, that's 3 of them on the board. I believe you need 4, which I don't know why you need a supermajority.
I can answer that question. So the reason we need a supermajority is because at the time that Nav Gill's contract was up, everybody loved Nav. And so they decided not to give him an open-ended contract, which by county charter means that you have to have 4 votes in order to be able to let him go. If they had given him a contract with an end date, they would have only needed 3 votes to be able to let him go. And so that is one of the things that I think Patrick Kennedy is now regretting, because he was like, at the time, he was doing a good job, and I thought this was going to be good for the stability of the county and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, nah.
Right.
I think giving people a place where they have no accountability for because he's not elected. So the only thing you have is the ability to be able to say, you're not doing a good job, we're going to let you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so hopefully Fishman gets in, and I mean, my read on Natoli is that he really doesn't like to be in uncomfortable positions. Yeah. But Dawn, you're going to be in an uncomfortable position if you go against 3 of your colleagues on this. So
let's say if you're a Voices listener and you're listening to this episode and you're incensed over this and you want to do something about it, like emailing your supervisor and letting them know how you feel about the way that Nav Gill really fucked up CARES money is an option.
Yeah.
Yes,
definitely.
I think that's a great way to do it. There's also a letter that will have come out by the time we publish, I think, this piece, from a number of public health officials saying basically, here are all of the things that Nav Gill has done wrong as far as public health goes during this pandemic. And like just the bullet points are disregard for public health, a culture of sexism, culture of intimidation and bullying, and a culture of racism. So it goes deeper than the pandemic. And I think people are about to learn a lot more on that. And I won't get into it.
Yeah. And that culture of intimidation and bullying is exactly what Skylar was talking about with like intimidating, staff who were trying to fulfill the public health order and bullying people who were wearing masks. And I mean, just really, really being a terrible person. Like, I think it goes without saying that someone who would spend the CARES Act money this despicably, this probably isn't the only thing that they have in their wheelhouse of bad behavior. Like, I don't think it would surprise anyone that they also are engaging in sexism and racism and intimidation and other things, because you don't just like spend money like this so blatantly irresponsibly without there likely being some other things going wrong in your moral compass. So
I think that's a great point. I think we've covered this pretty well. I will say when I tweeted about this got like a lot of responses, and I this isn't going anywhere, and the county has to deal with it. So so they fucking better.
Well, that's like that sucks for them, right? Because we were talking we've talked about that on the show before, where like people are always interested in like what the mayor is doing and what city council is doing for some, like, because those are like, I don't know, I guess more like publicly visible positions or something than the county board of soups. But like, and the county board of soups gets away with all this awful shit because most people don't even know that they exist, like
by design. I mean, I think that their 9 a.m. Tuesday meetings are a disgrace. I think that they do a terrible job at community outreach. I also, to push back a little bit on the way that Marcos would frame it, I would also say that the B doesn't cover the county as much as they cover the city. So, I think all of those things lead to, them kind of sometimes getting more of a free pass than they deserve.
Right. They get to fly under the radar.
Exactly. Though I'm not saying that we shouldn't be paying attention to the city. I'm just saying I think we can chew gum and walk at the same time. And I think we should be able to do both.
No, our region, as a member of the media, we have always undercovered the county on multiple spaces, and that shouldn't be a secret. And I feel like Marcos is being a little disingenuous if he's telling you otherwise. But no, I mean we always have failed in that regard, and I mean everyone.
Well, I think like the reason I bring it up, right, is that these guys, this fuck up is, it's hard to call this a fuck up because it's intentional. So it's not like a whoopsie thing on the part of the county, but this is like so egregious that now like everybody's fucking pissed and they're losing some of that like anonymity and like lack of interest, like people are fucking looking at them now.
Yeah.
This is one of those things though. I'm just hoping people remain mad. It's you start changing things locally and then it's like, oh, we changed it locally, where else can we change it?
Right.
So let's fucking do it here. Can I move us on a little bit to a few days ago, Sac PD, Chief Hahn had made a promise that he'd be more transparent with how they are working with things and doing things with his department. So they released a study of theirs, or a survey of theirs, that determines it shows you a little snapshot of how officers view their work in the community. Now, the Sacramento Police Officer Survey from 2019 to 2020, as you can imagine, this took place before the wildest 2020 that anyone could have imagined. Right?
Yeah, according to the notes in the survey, the responses were obtained between a period during November 26, 2019 to January 6, 2020. So
this is all pre-COVID.
So they're done with this before lockdown happens and before the George Floyd protests were tore things up worldwide, right?
Yeah. But even so, and before actually the discourse that we started having, that people like Dr. Jane Manti on our show, and I don't know, Tiffany Rezel-Moyer and all of us, and like I think Conrad, you know, the sort of, what are the cops doing? How necessary are they? Should we start considering pulling funding from the police, defunding the police? All of this survey took place before that. Even so, there's some kind of damning numbers on here, I think, right? So where should we even begin?
I mean, I think like just as an overview, the police, if you poll the police and if you survey the police and ask them how good of a job they're doing in terms of like treating all races the same and being equipped and skilled enough to like deal with people in mental health crises, the police, if you survey them, have a very, very, very optimistic view of how good they are doing at these things. Some of these too, they surveyed a bunch of the public and asked them the same questions. And it will come as little surprise, I think, that the answers are almost basically diametrically opposed.
Let's start with that, because I think that was the funniest one to me. When they asked both the cops, Sac PD, and the residents about equal treatment of residents, they asked the question, how confident are you that Sacramento police officers treat people of all races equally? 88% of officers said very confident.
Well, 19%.
I'm extremely confident about this.
They're like, listen.
Only 1 in 5 of residents. And by the way, 4 in 10 residents said not confident at all.
Yeah.
Right.
And another 4 in 10 said somewhat confident. So,
which is not a gleaming review.
The police numbers for somewhat confident are like 12%. So it's like 42 or something to 12.
Correct.
Somewhat confident.
88%. That's 7 out of 8 cops are like, we fucking nailed it on race.
We're fucking killing it.
We are super good.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I didn't see broken down, and that I think is really important, is that this is kind of how the police are viewed nationally. There's another data set, and I'm going to blank on the name of it, but we can link to it in the show notes. And I think the most recent data that came out with this is neither 2017 or 2018. And they do this comparison, but they break it down by the race and ethnicity of the police officers. And what they find is that white police officers overwhelmingly think they're killing it. And their Latino and Black officers are like,
I don't like that verb flow.
Nah. Like,
so the Black cops are like, no, we're not doing well.
Yeah. They're like, you see this racial divide both in how the public sees the police, but also in how the officers by race see themselves. And where they're asking the questions around, like, you know, do you understand why the community is upset with you? And the Black and Latino officers like, of course. And the white officers like, I don't understand it at all. They're just upset for no reason. Like, and so that's the only thing that's missing here. And I don't know what the demographic numbers look like for Sac PD, because if you were to tell me that 12% of their officers were maybe some combination of women and or non-white, these data make total sense to me.
Actually, that might be how it. Well, maybe not. Like they show the breakdown racially at the end of it. I do want to discuss, Skylar, you mentioned dealing with mentally ill folks, right? Or people experiencing homelessness.
Right.
They asked the cops, the Sacramento police are adequately trained to deal with the mentally ill people they encounter when responding. And then they asked the cops to answer no or yes. 88% of cops said, oh, hell yeah, we're totally equipped.
We're nailing it.
We got this.
We got this.
We're doing such a good job.
Let me tell you.
And this is under 40. So like, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35% of the public thinks that they're adequately trained to deal with mentally ill suspects.
Well, yeah, 64% of residents said the police are not adequately trained. So that's 2 out of 3 people in public. So that's another just example of the dissonance, right?
Right. Well, I mean, probably part of it is probably because there are people who have watched law enforcement respond to a call to someone experiencing a mental health crisis, and they bring out 4 or 5 cars and they all just stand around staring. Like,
Right.
what are we supposed to do?
Right.
With the,
Or
like,
they assault
So-
the person.
right.
like,
Or
know.
it's a Joseph Mann.
right.
So
There's another graph right next to this one that says how well do Sacramento police
Right.
deal with mentally ill suspects. According to the police,
it's so
80% are well or very well.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
God.
Yeah, it's either well or very well.
Whereas 80% of the population says adequately to
or
very
poorly. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Somewhere
wanna
between
know-
adequate. Like I think the most of residents believe that the police are dealing with mentally ill suspects poorly. And that's the highest one at like 28 or something.
Yeah.
I want to know
Yeah.
who
So
the
police
cops
said
are that-
87% well or very well. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
who are the
That's
cops,
what I'm
like the
saying.
2
Like, that
cops
makes sense.
that say, I mean, I don't know, who are the folks who said, who are the officers who said poorly or very poorly? or
Right, I
poorly?
know.
And how are they doing today?
Fucking Serpico taking the fucking survey over here.
They're like, nobody look at my survey. Well,
I'm going to real briefly.
they're just like, ooh.
I want to real briefly hop up to this before the Ferguson effect is probably the most telling and important portion of this. But just real quick, the trust in the community portion.
Oh,
I don't know if
shit.
you read that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's basically asking, how much trust do you have in the residents in the area that you serve? And the answers you can have are hardly any trust, not much trust, some trust, quite a bit of trust. Most
Or
of them
complete
said
trust.
some trust. Yeah, and then complete trust. 0% of them said complete trust.
Yeah.
And then
That's
when
0%
they asked
of cops said that they have complete
Right.
trust in the residents
in the
and
community
in the
that
communities
they
they are
they're
policing.
around. 12% of community members said they have complete trust. Ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about them before. These are the bootlickers we've been talking about.
Right.
Like these cops don't trust them, but they trust them fully.
Right.
Just 100%.
Right.
Wait, I can't remember. Does this even say what district those folks are in? No, it doesn't.
It gets no, it's not weighted in this portion. It's not that honestly, the public facing one that they release is not all that intensive.
I would I am going to be very interested to see the survey numbers from next year, like when they come out for this year. Because I feel like it is going to be pretty fucking stark in comparison.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
like the country hit like a fucking like the country went full ACAB there for a little while, you know.
Totally.
For fucking, I mean, for good reason. But like I would be interested to see how people react to this survey after this happens. It also like this shit is another like, because you know, like a lot of the fucking like the bougie fucking like lib version of like doing anything about killer cops is to be like, well, let's put more money into them and then we'll do reform programs and like we'll essentially allow the police to reform themselves. But like if you have a police force where like 90% of them think that they're just like doing a great job and like don't like are like doing well, like how are you expecting the cops to reform themselves? Like they think they're doing a good job. They don't think that they're fucking up.
I read it and I'm like, it's like asking Homer Simpson how good he is at the nuclear power plant. It's like,
right.
what do you think he's gonna say?
Oh my gosh, that is a great description.
Right. It's like allowing like the third grader who didn't do the homework to like grade his own book report. Like, A+. I did a really good job with this.
I did a great, yeah.
So is there a portion of this that somebody wants to jump to that really stood out to them? Those were the two that I thought we might want to start with.
I mean, those are the two I was interested in.
I mean, yeah, the whole thing is just kind of hilarious. I mean, I think hilarious, not in maybe in the ha way, but in the like, of course you did.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that the perception in terms of their like relationships by race feels like at least they recognize that they have a poor relationship with the Black community. Like, I don't,
But they're saying it's not our problem. Like 88% of them are like, well, it's not me.
Right. There's also, I mean, another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is it's a narrow majority, but it still is a majority of police officers who feel like minority officers who are minorities are they're treated better when it comes to assignments or promotions or whatever. So like a majority of cops think that like non-white cops have a better deal than they do when it comes to getting assignments or getting promotions, which I thought was interesting.
Right. So they're tromping around their station talking about reverse racism, basically.
Right.
So how do you think that translates to how they like go out there into the community?
Soup's great.
I mean, dude, cops are all about that like thing where it's just like, oh, well, fucking like there's just like differences between, Black people and white people, and pretending like there isn't is naive, and we're in the streets and we see it for real and blah, 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 blah. It's like that fucking super like 4chan chud fucking attitude towards racism. Right. And the cop, like, that's like the Bible for the cops.
So Flo, you said that the cops, 75% of them view their relations between officers and the Black community between fair and poor. 75% of them view that with the Black community, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was astonishing that like a good quarter of the police were like, yeah, we have an excellent relationship with the Black community. And I was like, where? Show me where.
Yeah,
where?
Please identify which community, where on this grid you are seeing that. That's bananas.
But I mean, at least their perception was that of all of the racial and ethnic groups, they are having the greatest challenges with the Black community. I mean, like, these are somebody in there is aware. I don't know who this 25% are who think it's good to excellent, but the folks who are at least below that are at least somewhat aware that fair to poor, I'll take for now.
Yeah.
1
in 3 are like, yeah, it's not good. I mean, open a newspaper. Yeah.
I guess I wasn't gonna mention it, but if we're gonna talk just for a little bit more about this, the on page 14 talking about homelessness as the top neighborhood problem.
Yeah, that's all.
I was, I'm not surprised by any of this really, but I think it's notable that through this, residents and police officers agree that people experiencing homelessness in their area is like a top neighborhood issue. And then the way that they sort of like break down other neighborhood issues like mentally ill subjects, selling or using drugs, littering and trash, vacant housing or storefronts. And I guess really that's it. Just like there's a lot of stigmatizing and stereotyping people experiencing homelessness within just even this like data set. And I think it's interesting to me that we have officers saying that so much of this is a big problem. Like, most of these numbers are higher than like 45%.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have a community of residents who are reporting the numbers at a majority of, I mean, I would say like, I don't know, like 30% and lower. So like where, I think it just is an example of like, again, the disconnect between residents and police. And Like if police are seeing this as a problem, if they're reporting that homelessness is a problem at such a high rate, then what it says to me is they don't have the fucking skill to deal with it, right? And that like maybe we should defund them and bring in people who actually like understand and are trained to deal with this leading problem that the police are faced with. And you know, and in our community we've seen MH First do some great work around, you know, addressing acute mental health crises, and certainly they, you know, they do end up dealing with people or engaging people experiencing homelessness. But I would love to see just like a completely, you know, and the whole team under Bridget Dean is you can't hire a cop to fix cop problems. I just, this whole thing is like, it's telling. And homelessness is one of the things that we can talk about that is like, this was pre-COVID,
right,
pre-uprising. Like, would this data change today?
It's funny because 88% of them are like, no, we can deal with homeless folks. We know what we're doing.
Right.
We can deal with mentally ill people. But it's
But
like
it's
the public,
problem.
not just people on our side of the issue, but people on the other side are saying, no, you can't. This is not your specialty and don't do it. And I think the reason they're saying they can is because they think that they're going to lose money in their department. And I hope they do, because they are not equipped to do it.
Well, and also in my line of work, it is not uncommon for multiple times a week the police department to show up with a person experiencing homelessness that they have received a call about. They bring, because I'm working with women experiencing homelessness, they bring her to the program and they're like, so what do we do? Like, so their tool is not to actually do anything. Their tool is to pick someone up and then to relocate them to a different part of town, and then not even a fucking warm handoff, because there's plenty of time where they'll just open up the door and the person will get out of the squad car, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, how'd you get here? Oh, police dropped me off. Tight. So like, what are you expecting? They said I could get housing. Awesome. That's not what we do here. Like,
they do not sound like experts in this fucking game at all. And it doesn't sound like money should be going to them to fix this issue.
100% no.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I feel my ulcer rising.
Speaking of groups of people who have vastly optimistic views on their own competence and job output, I hear there's a site called Voices River City where they only have perfect takes and everything they do is perfect. It's hard for me to believe that such a place exists. So I wanted to kind of run it by you. Have you heard of such a place where the news? I had a thing there and I lost it. Let's say where the takes are always perfect.
You know, I've read many things in my life, and there are a few where I've seen people sort of paint themselves as perfect, and one of them is the Sacramento Police survey. But I found it to be lacking, and I found their interpretation of the quote unquote Ferguson effect to be patently absurd. But one place where people do view themselves as perfect that has stood up to the test of time.
That stands the test of time.
Oh, God.
Is a place called voicesrivercity.com. Now, Voices River City has been doing news and arts coverage for 3.5 years. They've been doing Truth to Power essays. They've been doing the podcast. Anthony started the podcast back at the beginning of Voices River City. we've been doing the Sack Follows the Money project, which has been a joy to just show you who are the assholes giving money to whom in our political campaigns. It's been a lot of fun. Our most current iteration, obviously, is this iteration of the podcast, which has been a joy to do with just such good friends, especially during a time when no one can leave their home. And so thank you for listening. We love you. Thank you for coming to the site. We love you for that. Thank you for hating cops as deeply as we do. I love you for that. Again, our site is voicesrivercity.com. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Voices River City, Twitter and Instagram at Voices River City. Instagram is hilarious as hell. We break news, man, so just follow us on both of these things. We are on YouTube. You can watch our little faces as we talk our little show out, and it's always fun and cute. Voices River City on YouTube. Smash that like button, blam that subscribe button. I don't know, whatever you do to those things, and rate us on our iPhone apps, all those things. I am on
iPhone apps.
Yeah. There's an iPhone. Did I do that weird?
No, you're
No,
good.
you did it good. Where can I find you on Twitter?
Are we on Alexa? Oh wait, are we on?
Oh, we're on Patreon. Are we on Alexa? Yeah, ask Alexa for Voices River
Christ.
City. You can
It's
find
shit
us
like
there.
this is why the Sunrise Movement won't let us in. It's this kind of shit.
We're literally on Alexa. I actually signed up on
Are we
Alexa.
on Alexa? Wait,
Are we
hang
on
on.
Alexa? Are we on
No, I
Rate
had
and
to
review
manage.
the iPod thing.
Somebody asked me the other day
Hey, Siri.
how they could find this, and could they?
Am I on Alexa?
Somebody asked me, could they find it on something that I don't have? And I was like, I don't know. It's wherever you can find your podcast. That's what I hear at the end of every show.
No, I literally had to write us into Alexa. So that's not a dumb question.
Okay,
Like,
that's
we
what
are
I
on
thought.
Alexa.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't like tripping. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was the question. I don't have AI in my house other than my phone, so I didn't quite. I was like, I think so.
Are we on Alexa?
I don't either. I don't trust AI, and I'd be surprised if our listeners did. I'm on. We're also on Patreon. If you want to throw down $5, $10, $25 a month, we'll get you a T-shirt and a coffee mug. We are at patreon.com/voicesrivercity. I personally am on Instagram, and I fucking rule. I am Kempa, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
I think he meant to say Twitter.
He definitely meant
but
to
he
say
also
Twitter.
has an Instagram.
Oh shit! Yeah, don't follow me on Instagram. That's not Kempa.
You don't know Kempa. You don't know anything.
You don't know Kempa.
You don't fucking
Go to-
you don't
go
know,
to-
you
You
don't
should
know
definitely
Jack.
follow You Don't Know Kempa, though.
Oh, that would be an
Um,
awesome Instagram name.
I'm getting that today now.
You can find me on Twitter at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
Shit, what's my Twitter? Oh, I am on Twitter as well.
yours.
Shan ND Stevens.
Welcome
been a
back,
while.
Shannon.
It's
Welcome
been a minute.
back.
Thank
Boo,
you very
hey,
much.
boo, hey, boo, hey. And you can find me at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
Yay.
All right. Hey, I think another thing too, a reason to fund us instead of the police is that we have 100% less brutality. We have brutalized
That's true.
100% less people than the SAC PD. So there's that to think about.
That checks
That's a
out.
great point.
That
Yeah.
checks out.
Yeah. Well, guys, speaking of not brutalizing the community, we want you to know that we appreciate and love every single one of you. We would never brutalize you. In fact, we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
Yeah,
Okay.
for real. We're spiking again, huh?
Yeah,
yeah.
we really gotta go
We're going
serious
purple.
on this.
Yeah, yeah. Stay
It's
the
getting
fuck away from
cold and it's
everybody.
gonna
Yeah.
suck, but let's
Just
just do
stay
it.
away from each other. Don't do it. It's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Hug your what can you hug?
Oh,
A
no.
Body pillow.
Hug a
The
pillow.
mirror.
Hug your quarantine buddies.
Hug a mirror?
I don't
Did you-
know. That's the closest thing I have to
Oh,
another person. in my
Skylar's
house.
the asshole. Like I totally empathize when he said that.
All right, I'm done with this show.
I'm sorry, we don't have a husband.
This fucking episode is over.